how did I get this idea for the book? And the idea for the book started in June 2012. That was about 6 months after Eric Green had passed away. And it was jazz night. The middle school band has a jazz night every year, and they were preparing to play. And my son Jonah at the time was a 7th grade drummer in the jazz band. And in their set list, they were planning to play a song called Swing Shift. And the reason that that song was important was because it was the last song that Eric Green had played with the big band before he had passed, and they hadn't played it since. So when these children, these middle school children, played this piece, all the parents in the audience, we were very emotional. We were waiting for this to be a really hard song for them to get through. But then I watched, and these kids played it so professionally. They played through their sadness, and it was exquisite and beautiful. And I thought, how did they do that? How did they get through this sadness? And I thought about it all weekend, and then the answer became obvious. It was Mr. Clark who is the reason. Because if you don't know him, not to add to your throwing legend, if you don't know him, he is a larger-than-life, kind of tireless, exuberant character. If he was a fictional character, people would say, no, that's too much. He's a He is a force of nature. And through a combination of nurturing and pushing the kids to improve and really bad jokes, Mr. Clark got those kids where they needed to go. Yes, you know. And at the time, I was looking for a new project, a new writing project. And I kept thinking about Jazz Night, Mr. Clark, these kids. I knew they were going to be going through a year of mourning. I knew that a year from now, they'd be playing in a service to honor Eric, and they'd be playing a piece commissioned by the school in Eric's honor. And so then I came up with the idea, how about I shadow you for a year? How about I come to every 7 a.m. rehearsal?
Early is on time. On time is late.
7 a.m., 3 times a week. That was brutal. But I went to all of them. For the first time, my son was on time. I had to be there. I went to all of their rehearsals, all of their performances. I exchanged way too many texts with Mr. Clark. I interviewed members of the band, those who wanted to sit down and talk to me, twice. I sat down and spoke with probably a little more than half of the members of the band to get their feelings, as long as I promised I wouldn't tell Mr. Clark that they really weren't writing anything down on their music or that they were pretending they knew that song. I told them I wouldn't narc on them and tell Mr. Clark that. But so I got permission from them, from Mr. Lavoie, the parents, and spent tons of time interviewing people in this room, interviewing Mr. Clark's friends and family, interviewing teachers, interviewing colleagues and former students, all to paint this picture of how these students made it through a year that was extraordinarily difficult, but also what this program and this teacher means to this community. And it's as much a book about Southborough and the community pulling together as it is about music. Now here we are 4 years after the last meeting of the 2012-2013 Big Band. There are pictures of them on the back of what they looked like the year that I followed them. And I finally have a book out of it. And now if you were a member of the band the year I followed you, you each have, I inscribed a book for each of you. So if you haven't received yours, you can ask Abby for them in the back. Now I'm going to read some short excerpts from the book. And I'm just going to say up front, I'm not the greatest expressive reader. I'm no Mr. Clark. And when I quote Mr. Clark, I am not going to attempt to imitate him when I read it. So, I know. I could have him up here and he could do voices.
No, I love when people quote me.
I'm sure you do.